Hello students, today we will discuss about more features of an instruction set architecture. Last session we were discussing about the various features like the memory addressing, the addressing modes, the various types and sizes of operands, etc. So this session we will see the first part as the different operations of uh, that can be used with an instruction set architecture. Uh, so generally these are the various categories of operations used with various instruction set architecture. First one is data transfer operation. Then second one is arithmetic operation. As the name indicates, data transfer, movement of data. Then arithmetic operation for doing various arithmetic operations like addition, subtraction, etc. Similarly, logical operations with logical and or operations, similar operations. Then similarly we are having another set of operations which is called as control flow instructions, which is used with means like jump and similar operations for branching and other purposes. And finally we are having some type of operations which can be exclusively used with the floating point set of values. So these are the major operations used with instruction set architecture. We will see one by one in means with very few examples. Just we will have a look how these operations look like. So first of all we will see data transfer operations. So we are taking all these instructions from MIPS 64-bit processor. So we are considering only MIPS operations. From the MIPS we are having both 32 and 64-bit processors available. These particular instructions are actually taken from MIPS 64 architecture, and also we are not including the entire syntax or format of writing instruction. We are simply looking at the opcode part, how these instructions can be used for performing various operations. So all the operations are taken from MIPS 64 instruction set architecture. So data transfer actually used for movement of data between registers and memory, or between the integer or floating point, between two integer values, or between floating point registers, or between special registers also. So this is the major purpose of data transfers, that is the movement of data between different memory and registers, even with integer and floating point, as well as with special registers also. We will have the look at some of the example data transfer operations used with MIPS 64. Like for memory access, I have mentioned earlier, MIPS architecture always use load and store operation for memory direct access. So LB is actually load byte, LBU is load byte unsigned, which is for loading the byte value from the memory. Similarly, store is actually used for storing the content from means register to memory. So all these are from register to memory and from memory to register. So load byte unsigned, store byte. Similarly, another set of load operation, load half word unsigned. We have already mentioned half word in the previous types and sizes of operands. Similarly, store half word, load word unsigned, store word. Then load double word, similarly store double word. Now these are special set of instruction that is with floating point values. So for every floating point operations we are using a dot symbol in between in the case of MIPS 64 architecture. So L dot is actually used for loading single precision floating point value. L dot D is actually for loading double precision floating point value. Similarly, store single precision value, store double precision value. Then MFCO, MTCO, all these are for copy purpose we are using with special registers. Then movement of a single precision and double precision value between means it is copying a single precision value or double precision floating point register to another floating point value, movement between floating point registers. Then this is for copying from MFC1 MTC1. This is for copying of 32 bits value between floating point and integer registers. So we will just think about the initial some of the major data transfer operations used with MIPS. All these are just for communication between memory and register. Now next category of insertion operation is arithmetic and logical. So we are mixing these two together. In the earlier slide I was mentioning this arithmetic and logical as separate set, but we are including these two together. These are the operations on integer or logical data in general purpose registers, signed arithmetic, and we are having a trap on overflow. Means if some overflow happens, we should have some interaction with the operating system. That will happen automatically according to the insertion. So some of the examples like DAD is actually add operation. In MIPS 32-bit we are using add, simple add operation, but in MIPS 64 we are using DAD. That is the format they are using. So DAD is actually simple add operation. Then DADI is actually for adding immediate value with immediate data. Then similarly add with unsigned, add with add immediate unsigned insertion. Similarly D sub unsigned, D mul for multiplication, D mul unsigned, D div unsigned, then madd for multiplication. So similarly for logical operation we are using and immediate, or immediate, XOR immediate, load upper immediate. All these are special instructions. We are not so familiar, but just have a look at these instructions which are used with MIPS 64 architecture. Just remember some of the instruction names which are used with MIPS 64 architecture. So general point is arithmetic and logical instructions are used for basic arithmetic operations and basic logical operations within the processor. Now next category is control instruction, conditional branches and jumps, PC relative or through register. So some examples like branch equal to 0, branch not equal to 0. Depends on the register contents. If the register content is equal to 0, some branching will happen. If the register content is not equal to 0, some branching will happen. Similarly, branch equal to, branch not equal to. Then this is for test comparison, like status register and all. Test comparison bit in the FP status register and branch. Then this is for copying the general purpose register to another general purpose register if third GPR is negative or 0. Then similarly direct jump, then jump to register, target is a register. Then similarly jump and link. So all these are different. Then trap is for communicate with the operating system. Then it is for returning from OS to the user code. So these are different branchings for a program from one location to another location according to some condition. So here most of the conditions are checked based on the value present in the register. So register content will be evaluated and accordingly the control will be moving towards some other location of the system. So control instructions are used for changing the current address means moving from one address to another address according to the program requirement. Then we have some exclusive operations with floating point values alone. So these are floating point operations on double precision and single precision. In different formats we are using this floating point operations. So add.d, as I have mentioned in the first instruction set, the dot is used with only floating point values. So add.d, so it is for adding double precision values. Add.s for adding single precision values. We have not mentioned the operands here, we are only mentioning the opcode. We need to write operands followed by this opcode. So this is only the explanation regarding the name of opcodes. Then add ps for means that is another means both single precision and double precision numbers. Similarly sub operations, then mul operation for floating point values, multiply and add operation, then div operations. Then these are actually convert instructions to convert from one to another type. So cvt.h. one example is given like cvt.x, y, it will be converted to x type to y type, will be converted into another type. If that situation arises, we can use this instruction. Similarly, this c dot, this dash is for this any of these replacement like lt. If c is less than d, if c is greater than g, greater than s. So on these floating point values, we can have some comparison. We are using these type of instructions. So these are some of the instructions used with only floating point, single precision as well as double precision values. Just try to remember some of the instructions related to floating point values. So in MIPS 64 we use dot for any floating point related operations. So we'll just look at the features of control flow instructions that we have already mentioned. They uses conditional branches. We can have some condition and accordingly we can have the branch move from one location to another location. Then we can have unconditional jumps directly, like we can go to some label and all. That is also possible for several processes. Then we can have procedure calls when we have a small modules or so small method or a function available. So when we have a call to that procedure, the control will be transferred to the body of that procedure, and then later after the completion of that procedure, the control will return back to the major code. As we are using with many high-level programming languages, in this assembly instruction also we can use procedure calls as well as return to the main program. Also we use program counter PC relative addressing, where the branch address is specified by an address field that is added to the PC. So program counter along with the address, we are actually specifying the location where we need to go. So program counter is the major element that decides the next instruction to be executed, right? So if the system need to go to some other location, the program counter value will be varied according to the target location where the branching must be done. Now another, when we compare with two microprocessors like MIPS and 80x86 or ARM, MIPS conditional branches test the contents of the register. MIPS normally, in the previous slide we have seen that it checks the condition of the register, what is the value present in the register. For example, branch on non-zero, branch non-zero. So it will look at the value of register, and whether it is non-zero, it will go to some target location. But in the case of 80, x86 and ARM, the branches test condition code bit set as side effect of arithmetic and logical operation. So here we are not specifying the target register, means it will test the condition code bits set as side effect of an arithmetic and logical operation. So based on the result of a particular operation, the branching will take place. Not like the by looking at the if some arithmetic operation results in a particular value, that will move the means branching from one location to another location. But in the case of MIPS, what they are doing is it will just look at the content of register. If the register consists of this value, if the register consists of less than 40, if the register consists of greater than 100, so whatever be the value there, accordingly it will do the branching. But in the case of 80, x86 and ARM, so after the addition, what value we are getting, accordingly as a side effect of that operation, the conditional branching will happen. So that is all about control flow instructions. So we were discussing about various operations. In that we have seen various operations like arithmetic, logical, then data transfer, then floating point operations, then the control flow instructions, etc., etc. So these are major portion where several processor consist of different set of instruction sets. So the types of we have already studied about the different instruction sets available in 8085, the different instruction sets available with 8086, the different instruction sets available with 386, 486, etc., etc. The same thing only. Most of the processes, these categories of instructions are common. The usage is slightly different. So we have taken the examples from MIPS 64 in this particular topic. Next, the last point to be discussed with instruction set architecture is encoding and ISA. Encoding and ISA, instruction set architecture, how the instruction can be encoded. So when we submit an instruction into the system, how that instruction will be encoded, how it will be placed inside the memory, in which format that instruction will be placed into the memory so that it can be processed further. So there are two types of encoding. One is called as fixed length encoding and second one is called as variable length encoding. So for fixed length, whichever processor that uses fixed length encoding, the size of the memory size, the maximum size, the length of the instruction, means length of the memory is actually fixed. Within this length, fixed length, we need to place the instruction. Means if it is from 0 to 32, if this is the size of that 0 to 31, this is the size of that particular instruction that can be accommodated. So here if the length is only some 8 bit, then also the entire memory 32 bits will be wasted for storing that particular instruction. That is the problem with fixed length encoding. So whatever be the size of instruction, it should take this 32 bits for storing that particular instruction. But in the case of a second category is also available, that is called as variable length encoding. Variable length encoding means if the instruction is small, it can utilize only less amount of memory. If the size of instruction is large, it can take accordingly. So which is a variable length encoding is the better mechanism for encoding, because it saves the memory with that is according to the size of the instruction. But fixed length encoding, the problem is the size is always fixed, even if the size of instruction is smaller or if the size of instruction is larger, whatever it be, the size is always fixed. Now the ARM processor and MIPS processor, they are actually using the instructions with 32 bits long, which is actually a fixed length. So ARM MIPS processor, they uses fixed length encoding with 32 bits long. So always 32 bits must be utilized for every instruction that is used with these two processors. But in the case of 80x86, the encoding is variable in length, ranging from 1 to 18 bytes. So number of bytes are being number of bytes is very large, so we can have larger instructions can also be stored. But look at here, in the case of MIPS we are having only 32 bits, but here 1 to 18 bytes are available. Accordingly, if the instruction is very small, it can take either 1 or 2 bytes. But if the size of instruction is very large, it can use maximum up to 18 bytes for storing that particular instruction. So variable length instruction takes less space than the fixed length instruction. You might have understood why it is so. I have already mentioned. So a program compiled for 80x86 is usually smaller than the same program compiled for MIPS. So compilation time will be less for 80x86 because suppose if a program consists of some 100 instructions, these 100 instructions are stored in according to the size of that particular all the 100 instructions. So while doing compilation, they will only refer to those memory locations for compilation. But for MIPS, what will happen? For all the 100 instructions, it will be doing compilation on the 32 bits of each of the instruction. So automatically memory reference and compilation will take more time in the case of MIPS than the processor 8086. Now we will see one sample encoding, one example processor, one particular example we will take, that is taken from MIPS, which is of 32 bits long, which is using fixed length encoding mechanism. So we will look at MIPS instruction format. So there are 3 instruction formats used with basic MIPS. One is R instruction, second is I instruction, and third one is J instruction. So R is actually for register instructions, I is actually indicating immediate instructions, and J is actually indicating jump instruction. So these 3 major categories are available with MIPS. So 3 formats are used, but all the formats, as you can see, from 0 to 31, total 32 bits are being utilized by all the categories of instructions. So 3 examples are given. One R instruction format is given, one I instruction format is given, one J instruction format is given. For all the instruction, it actually takes the entire 32 bits, that is fixed length for encoding. Okay, so what is this R instruction? The instruction that uses registers. Okay, so this 0 to 32 bits means 0 to 31, total 32 bits. How the sessions, the different bits are being divided for storing the different elements of that particular instruction. So from 31 to 26, last 5 bits are actually given for storing the opcode. For example, add is an opcode. For storing that opcode, we are using the last 5 bits. Then next 21 to 25, that 5 bits are used for storing the RS. RS is the source register, that is the first register, the first value that is to be manipulated. Then second is RT, is another register, that is the second value, register value that is to be manipulated. So if you have one more value to be added, normally it will be RU, STU, just for indicating next register value, it is given like this. But in the case of MIPS only, we are having these two, RS and RT, 2 register values, 5 bits. Then one more 5 bits for another register, that is the destination register. This is the destination register where we are storing the result. Then you can see 5 bits are reserved for a term that is given as SHIMT, which is actually shift amount. This is shift amount. If any shift operation is to be done as part of this instruction, how many shift, that value to be added into, so that indication can be given in this 5 bits, that indicates the shift amount, and finally we are having 5 bits that is reserved for including the function. So according to the opcode, what function to be performed, that function details are actually added, the internal function details to be added in this first 5 bits. So for an R instruction, 0 to 5 function, 6 to 10 shift amount, 11 to 15 the destination register, 16 to 20 the second register, 21 to 25 the first register, 26 to 31 the opcode. This is the format of an R instruction. Now we look at an example for I instruction. What is the difference here? Here the last 5 bits are for opcode, similar to the previous one. Then we are having the source register, then second register, 2 registers, then we are having the immediate value. Okay, so here the source register and destination register, then we are having an immediate value. So sometimes here this can be considered as the target where we are storing the result of this immediate operation. So here we will be having immediate value. More space is given because we may have 0 to 15 values, bits are given for immediate value. Maybe sometimes the immediate value may be very larger. So that is why they have given this much amount of memory for storing the immediate value. Then we look at a jump instruction. Jump instruction directly gives an opcode for the last 5 bits, and all the remaining is used for storing the address. So opcode is like jump instruction, then to which address, that address to be placed within this 0 to 25 bits of memory. So the address size may be very less, but it is reserved for storing the address of the target location where this jump instruction will move. So that is the basic instruction formats, basic manipulations: R instruction, I instruction and jump instruction. That is for normal numerical operations. And we are having a second category, that is for floating point instructions. We are using FR and FI instruction formats. FR is floating point register, FI is floating point immediate. We have taken some formats only, we have not taken entire formats. Even then for floating point we will be having jump operation also, similar to the previous one, which is having the same format only. That is why we are not including that once again. So floating point register FR instructions will be like opcode, similar to the previous one. Then you can see 21 to 25 is actually used for the format specifier, FMT. FMT actually indicates format. FMT for format. Which format? Whether this floating point operation uses a single precision format or double precision format, that indication must be kept in the second position, that is from 21 to 25. 5 bits are reserved for that format. Then this is the floating point register, first one, then second one, then this is the destination where the result is being stored. Then finally we are having the function, what function will be applied for that particular instruction, what function to be called for, that will be stored internally according to the opcode. That internal function called will be added into the first 0 to 5 bits. So for floating point R instruction, 0 to 5 for function, 6 to 10 for the destination register, 11 to 15 for second register, 16 to 20 for first register, 21 to 25 for the format of which type of floating point instruction we are using, whether it is single precision or double precision, that information is given here. And the 26 to 31 we are having the opcode. Then FI instruction for immediate instruction, again look at almost same thing only, opcode for the last 5 bits, 21 to 25 the format specifier, 16 to 20 one register, then the remaining 0 to 15 is used for the immediate value to be added with this one, and the result accordingly the result will be stored. So these are floating point. So we are discussing about encoding and insertion, encoding and ISA. So various encoding mechanisms like fixed length and variable length mechanisms are available. So this is an example for fixed length encoding, which is supported by MIPS architecture, and we have seen various instruction formats like R instruction, I instruction, J, FR and FI instructions. So this is the way how we are encoding the instruction present in MIPS architecture. So that is all about instruction set architecture. We have discussed about various aspects of instruction set architecture, which is the major portion of the design of a computer. That is, the first point itself is instruction set architecture design. So while designing this instruction set architecture, we have to consider all the factors that was mentioned in the previous slides, like the instruction set, starting from instruction set design, types of instruction, size of instruction, addressing modes, memory addressing, type, size of operands, then different operations present in the various processor. Then finally we are having the encoding of an instruction set architecture. So that's it for now. In the next session we will discuss about the other aspect of design that is related to the integrated circuit design. Thank you.